Hello, my name is Jessica Avalos, and I chose to do my lesson series on culture and community. The following will be an overview of the lesson series as a whole, and there's links provided for the individual lesson plans as well. So, lesson series overview, the area of focus, as already stated, is culture and community. Intertwined with this really is identity, because culture and identity really intersect so much that it was really hard to separate them. And I really felt that the student needed to focus on the individual identity and then the collective identity of culture, as well as things that we might perceive outside of culture, in order to build that class community and whole school community. The content area of focus is English language arts, but this could definitely be utilized in a history setting as well. The essential question for the lesson series is, what role does culture play in shaping our school communities? The summative assessment is the school community design project. It's a project-based attempt to assess students and their understanding of culture, identity, and building community. There is no pre-assessment, as I was not trying to, or it's not intended to be this kind of content focus where I'm assessing them on, like, did they learn the actual definition, so much as the focus is them building and revising understanding, but also working collaboratively with their peers. And so the real area of focus will be the summative assessment, but then there's also plenty of assessments throughout each lesson that allow you to assess formatively the student's understanding of the key concepts. The lesson series should take approximately 5 days. There's a total of 4 lessons, but the last day is intended for them to work solely on their projects with their groups and to give presentations. This will definitely need to be revised if you have shorter class periods, longer class periods, and depending on your grade level. I teach 7th grade English language arts, so my grade area, my grade level of focus was the 7th grade. So please keep that in mind as you review the lessons. So the big picture where I really tried to focus on this was 3 areas: the self, or the individual, the other, so to speak, and I put that in quotation marks because, I should put that in quotation marks because I don't want the other to be seen as this thing that's separate from the individual, but that was kind of the best term that I could come up with it for this diagram. And then the third is school culture and community. So they're going to be focusing on those individually, but the goal is to kind of get right here in that little sweet spot where all 3 are overlapping. So here's my planning process. So uploaded is also all of the video tutorials on each of the lessons. So like I said, there are 4 lessons total, and those are all linked here as well. The first lesson is cultural and identity mapping, and this is really just kind of trying to define and come up with definitions for both culture and identity. And this lesson is designed to focus mostly on the individual and slightly starting to branch out to the other. And I think they need to have a better understanding of who they are before they can start reaching out and building those bridges and creating empathetic and solid relationships. So if you click on those links, it should take you directly to the lesson. And within that, you will have the rundown for each lesson, as well as measures for formative assessment. CFUs are listed in either side for each lesson. And so this one, like I said, is intended to be working on culture and belonging and identifying culture. And so in the individual lesson series, you can go in and I'll go over those in more detail. So you'll find that for each lesson. Lesson 2 is really starting to work on the spreading out or the branching out into the school community. It's a really important lesson because it's really starting to help them define what community and inclusiveness and inclusion looks like. And this is going to be a major stepping stone in them reaching that final project. Lesson 3 is going back to the individual, but then also combining that with the collective. So students will work on poetry. They'll create a poem about themselves, and they will use that as well as another portion of the lesson to create a group poem where they take the I am and replace that with we are, and kind of make a group statement about this is who we are as the collective. And so, again, taking those two components and marrying them together. Lastly, lesson 4 is to get to that project and create an inclusive school culture. So I'm going to click on the final project prompt so that that can be seen. So this is where you might want to start. So what the students are going to be asked to do at the end is to analyze a school. So they've got 2 options. So they're going to need to either analyze a school event or policy that already exists on the campus and make revisions to that so it's more inclusive. Within the lesson series, I use the example of the school or district calendar and analyze the holidays that are celebrated or recognized on that calendar and try to make it a more inclusive calendar so that the diverse populations are also included. The second option is that instead of revising an event or policy that's already taking place on campus or within the district, the students need to create a new event or a policy for our campus that builds community and celebrates diversity. And you could even take this a step further and have them implement this portion of it and run their project. But then again, you would need the lesson series to be much longer. And then down here are some requirements that I have. I would want them to create some type of presentation, whether it be Google Slides or another medium, and present that to the class on how that's going to work and what that would look like, and most importantly, why it's important. And this would be that summative assessment piece where you're really gauging whether or not they took in those concepts or if things need to be clarified further. So again, all of those are linked right here, and then I'll have the lesson folder at the end. So within the lesson series, I have videos. Please, I forgot to note that my lesson series was not implemented. I don't have access to the classroom the way others do. My school just won't allow me to implement the lessons in the way that the class that we're in wants. So I'm doing the alternative assignment. And so I don't necessarily know what this looks like or what this would play out to be. Okay, going back to the videos on this particular slide, there are 3 videos total included in this lesson series. The first video that you see right here is the digital story that I created regarding identity and regarding culture. The other 2 videos do essentially the same thing. What is identity? What's culture? This particular video over here is about building school community. So that's a huge stepping stone in them getting to their final stages of the project. In lesson 3, the students are going to be writing an I am poem. So I added a picture here to just kind of give you a brief rundown. But an I am poem prompt is provided. On the left-hand side, they kind of have the insert the blank formula. And on the right-hand side, there is the example. You could, and I would do this. I would create an I am poem for myself and share that with the students. Again, that's building community and extending that idea and showing that vulnerability. So I think that's an important stepping stone. Once they have their I am poem created, they're going to work with their groups and with the other materials from that lesson, which are sticky notes and one-word responses regarding identity and culture. They're going to utilize that, work together, and negotiate to create a we are poem for their group or for their classroom. Lastly, this kind of study portion. So as I briefly mentioned a minute or two ago, I was not in a position to implement this lesson series. I work at a school where we are what I like to call calendared, and I'm not allowed to deviate from that calendar really in any capacity. So my studies focus is very much hypothetical. And so you can see that analysis here. Kind of hard to see, but sorry. The lesson, I feel like in general could be very productive. I think that there's a lot of great components to it, but because I did not get to run through, I only have hypotheticals. So I really think that it would do a good job of moving from kind of this we do, I do, you do kind of phases, and learning about themselves and learning about others. And I think that the project-based learning is a crucial component that really allows students to have a lot of buy-in because they are creating the school culture. They are the ones doing the critiquing. They are the ones making their school better. And I really think that that is the pivotal or paramount component for this lesson series. Some of the downfalls are, I think, what most teachers will recognize is time. There's never enough time. So I feel like this lesson series is going to take a lot longer than intended. But also, I think just depending on how you guide your students, it's very doable. I also didn't like that I wasn't really able to incorporate a lot of readings about culture and diversity. I really would have liked to do that, but because of the time constraints, it's really hard to incorporate those readings while we're also trying to make meaning and understanding of such a big topic. So again, I feel like having more time, having 2 or 3 weeks to really dissect this would be incredibly beneficial. And I think that's a flaw in the lesson series that's already here. And so I'd like to extend those ideas, farther out so that students are gaining a better understanding of quote unquote the other and of the community. And I didn't incorporate it in the initial lesson series, but to actually implement the student's proposal or the student's project. I think that that would be really amazing to have them create some type of event and actually run that on campus so that they can see that community growth actually happen. And again, the link for that is provided, along with a link of all of my lessons, all of the video recordings of the lessons, the prompt and the videos, and then the YouTube videos are linked within each individual lessons. So I appreciate you taking the time to look at my lesson series and do a run through with me. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me and I will try to help you out as best as I can. Thanks.